On your Thursday episode of Locked On Raptors, most rookies are bad when they first hit the league, but that might not be true of one Collin Murray-Boyles.
You are Locked On Raptors, your daily Toronto Raptors podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what's going on? And welcome to another episode of Locked On Raptors, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. It is Thursday, September the 25th, and I am your host, Sean Woodley. I've been covering the Toronto Raptors now for 11 seasons on various platforms, but to start the 10th season of this here podcast. My God, I'm ancient. And of course, thank you so much for being here. You can find all my work over on Blue Sky. You can find the show on Instagram. You can join us in the Locked On Raptors Discord server. Link in the description of the podcast. Free to join as always. And on today's show, we're talking about Collin Murray-Boyles, the Toronto Raptors' 9th overall pick from this summer's NBA draft. And we're going to dig into the expectations for him going into year one. Where is he going to fit? Where is he going to excel? Where is he going to struggle? Does he have a shot at all rookie? We'll do all that coming up on today's show as we get into a prospect who, look, I was not thrilled about the idea of taking him going into the draft, mostly for fit reasons. I thought the overlap with Scottie Barnes was a little concerning, and the lack of space and shooting on the team might not be super conducive to getting the most out of Collin Murray-Boyles. But now that he's on the team, I'm okay to completely throw my weight behind him, because as I talked about in the lead up to the draft, even talking about him as a guy who I wasn't totally sure was the right fit for the Raptors, he is a prospect designed in a laboratory for me to geek out on. And I am pretty excited to watch year one of Collin Murray-Boyles. And I think unlike most rookies, there's a real chance that Collin Murray-Boyles is doing like impactful things to inform and help winning in year number one, particularly on one end of the floor. We will talk about the offense coming up in a little bit, but I want to start with the defensive end for Collin Murray-Boyles, because it really is the most tantalizing element of his game. And look, there's a lot of stuff about his game that's super fun on the offensive end that we'll get into as well. But as far as ability to impact winning from day one, it's going to be on the defensive end for Collin Murray-Boyles. And this is a team that, I was talking about it all summer through the end of last year when the Raptors were having their nice stretch of good defense, where it seemed like, oh, maybe there's something here. I was always very, very much a proponent of they have to add more. They need more defensive infrastructure. They need more defensive talent to fit into this roster. And you could argue that outside of Scottie Barnes and maybe even alongside Scottie Barnes, Collin Murray-Boyles is the highest upside defensive player this roster has. It's not to say he's going to hit it all in year one. Most rookies do not do that. It's going to take some time. It's going to be a multi-year process here. And typically, I'm in the camp where I just assume most rookies are going to be bad in year one, even when they're good. Like last year's Raptors rookies, Jacoby Walter, Jamal Shed, Jonathan Mobo, Jamison Battle, all did good things that were exciting and fun to watch and tantalizing for what they could maybe be down the line someday. But they were all bad. They lost their minutes horribly when they played all those guys, as you happen to expect when it comes to rookies. And when it comes to Collin Murray-Boyles, look, the most likely outcome with any rookie is that the team's going to lose his minutes, that, he's not going to be quite ready. There are going to be struggles. There are going to be growing pains, ups and downs, all of that. But I do think defensively, he stands as good a chance as really any prospect in this year's draft outside of maybe Cooper Flagg, and even maybe more so than Cooper Flagg, because Flagg is going to have a whole lot of offensive burden on his plate in year one with no Kyrie Irving down in Dallas, at least to start the year. I think there's a case to be made that Collin Murray-Boyles is the single most NBA-ready defender in this class. And he stands a chance of being one of the sort of recent guys where, Amen Thompson and Asar Thompson were good defenders from day one, essentially. You had Cason Wallace has been a very good defender from essentially day one in the NBA. Jalen Williams, too, not to, highlight just two teams, but, or one family in terms of the Thompsons, but like there is a more sort of recent trend of rookies coming in and being ready to hang on the defensive end in a way they haven't in the past. The league's getting younger. The league's getting more athletic. And if you're young, athletic, and have defensive wits about you, then you stand a chance of making an impact right away. And I think Collin Murray-Boyles certainly falls under that umbrella of prospect. Just to kind of go through the tail of the tape on him again, right? Like 6'7", 7'1" wingspan, strong as hell. I think the strength is the thing that really stands out when you just watch him play. He just moves guys. When he's on offense, when he's driving, guys bounce off of him. When he's defending, he's in control of whoever he's trying to harangue with the ball in their hands. He is in control of where they're going. He is not getting moved through. He's not getting moved off of his spot. He is a fire hydrant. And he's a fire hydrant who has like really great defensive awareness as well. I think we saw last year with South Carolina, he was asked a ton to play as a center, a small center, yes, but he did it effectively. He showed good rim protection numbers. He showed capacity for, going out into space when he needed to as well. I just think he's going to be this kind of Swiss Army knife defender who the Raptors are going to be able to have a lot of fun with in terms of how they deploy him. Like if I'm Darko Rajakovic, I'm just like, I got to try it all with this guy. It's like a buffet of different ways to throw this dude out to see what he can do for you defensively. I think he's going to play as a big man a lot. Wouldn't be surprised if he's the nominal backup 5 when Jakob Poeltl sits for stretches of this season. Maybe not the whole year. Maybe they go with Mamu. Maybe they go with Scotty Barnes. Maybe they go with a Barnes, Murray-Boyles 4-5 front court where who is center doesn't really matter. They're switching. They're, sort of rotating and helping one another, both offering rim protection, both offering perimeter defense, all of that. I think we'll see him deployed in that fashion as a big man for sure. I also think we'll see him as a wing stopper type. The Raptors don't exactly have a ton of those types of guys in the team. I think Scotty Barnes showed last year that he can do it. Had some nice moments against guys like Jason Tatum and other big burly wings. I think Ochai Abaji's the guy that kind of asked to do that the most, even though he's not incredible at it. He has his moments here and there. Bigger wings are tough for him because he's only like 6'5". I think there's a real chance that, like, if there's a wing who is cooking the Raptors this year, you're going to see Collin Murray-Boyles be one of the very first guys they try on that wing to slow that guy down. And I can't wait to see that either. I think he's got the strength, the hands, the pickpocket ability, all of that stuff to be a damn good point of attack defender against opposing wings and forwards as well. I think back to OG Anunoby back in 2017-18, right? We've seen a rookie have defensive impact from day one, right? It requires a certain level of strength and sort of physical maturity, a level of experience, and just sort of like, again, having like a fully rounded adult body is very important for being a good defender from day one. OG Anunoby had that coming. I think Collin Murray-Boyles very much falls into that category as well. And then going beyond the wing defense stuff, I think we're going to see a whole bunch of different schemes when he's out there. They're going to try things. They're going to play switching defense, stuff like that. I also think they're just going to let him pick up the ball at times as well, too. He did this plenty in college as well. The footwork is there. Maybe we'll see about the speed against NBA level guards, but this is a team that likes to pressure the ball. And if you can pressure the ball capably with someone who's 6'7" with arms that go for days, as opposed to a 6-foot guard, why not give it a shot? I think we're going to see that. I think we'll see Collin Murray-Boyles force plenty of 8-second violations and get pickpocket steals of guys trying to bring the ball up the floor under duress with him just draped all over them. I think he's going to be part of the high-pressure defense this team wants to play. Not all the time, of course. I think that'll mostly be the province of the guards, but they're going to be able to throw out some weird lineups where maybe you don't have a traditional point guard on the floor. Maybe Emmanuel Quickley is on the bench and you're not running Jamal Shed. You want to go with a bigger look. Maybe you've got RJ Barrett in there as your nominal point. Maybe you've got Ingram, or you got some shooting out there in the form of Abaji or Jacoby Walter, Jamison Battle. Maybe Mamu's out there, Scotty Barnes. Like, you're playing this sort of positionally amorphous basketball. Why not have Collin Murray-Boyles be your guard defender, the point of attack guy who cuts off the head of the opposing offense and forces them to find other avenues to good shots and advantage creation? Like, I think it's all on the table for him, man. He's just going to be this really fun weapon to deploy defensively. And because he's not going to be overtasked on offense, which we'll talk about in a second here, I think he's going to get to throw himself entirely into playing defense. And that's thrilling to me. He seems like a dude who really wants it. Josh Lewinberg interviewed him in the summer at Summer League, and it was basically just like a whole profile about what a sicko Collin Murray-Boyles is for playing defensive basketball. Cannot wait to see it. I think he's got a chance to be a very good defender from day one. Even going into the draft, I think he was probably, for me, no worse than third most likely of all of the dudes in the class to be on an all-defense team one day. Still very much feel that way. We'll get into the offensive fit, which is a little shakier, but I don't think there's anything to quibble with defensively. And he is the exact kind of talent upgrade the team needed to help sustain the stuff it's done defensively, or it did defensively at the end of last year, where it showed some promise. Like, hey, like maybe there is the outline of a good defense here in a way that maybe we didn't think there was before. Murray-Boyles helps that big time. Of course, the big challenge is going to be getting him on the floor in lineups that make sense offensively as a guy who just doesn't shoot it, at least not yet. We'll talk about the offensive fit and where Collin Murray-Boyles can fit in and how he finds his way to 25 minutes a night, maybe, because the defense is just so good. Is there an avenue to that within the shape of the Raptors team with his lack of shooting? We will get to that coming up in just 1 second. Today's show is brought to you by friends over at FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure that you are ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet $5, and if your first bet wins, you get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. That's a lot of fun. If you think there's like a no-brainer team that's going to win in the NFL this weekend, you think whoever's playing the Tennessee Titans is always a good bet. I think that's true. I think they still stink. They have a rookie quarterback who's throwing picks all over the place. You can go and throw some money on the team that's playing the Titans, get that $300 in bonus bets, and then use those $300 on all kinds of things, whether it's NBA futures bets or baseball playoffs. The Blue Jays looking a little dicey right now. If you want to throw some money on a happiness hedge to bet against the Blue Jays to win, so when they inevitably do Blue Jays October things, you can feel good about it because you got some scratch in the bank. You can go and do that at FanDuel right now. Download the FanDuel app by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. FanDuel.com. Go check it out. Back at it here, talking about Collin Murray-Boyles. And look, the defense, as with any rookie, there are questions, there's uncertainty. It's not a surefire guarantee home run. Yes, it's happening thing that he's going to be a great defender from day one. And great's probably putting it pretty strongly. I think he's got a very good chance to be a good, impactful defender from day one. If he's any better than that, great. I think really the place where his game gets a little more uncertain is on the offensive end. And again, it's not really anything to do with him either. I think it's just to do with the way the team is built and the shape of the front court and the lineup combinations that the Raptors will have to get to optimize him. I'm not saying they can't do it, but it's going to be they're going to have to be very, I think, methodical about how they do it, very intentional about where they play Collin Murray-Boyles in ways that they can kind of optimize their lineups to make sure they're not tilted too far away from the offense, just for the sake of having good defense on the floor. Offensively for him out of the gate, I think it's going to be a pretty basic scoring package, right? I think he's going to finish on cuts. I think he's going to get some bully drive opportunities where maybe teams aren't really guarding him, but he can get it on the catch and just kind of plow into dudes and get to the bucket and score. That was a thing he did quite well in college. He's, I think, going to be a good transition player, putback, stuff like that. I think he's a very good rebounder. He's probably going to be part of the big offensive rebounding surge I expect we'll see this team try to do. I think Darko's talked a lot about offensive rebounding being a thing that he believes in. It's a big trend in the league right now where offensive rebounding is up across the board. Can they play in lineups that are going to, hunt offensive rebounds to game the possession battle a little bit? Do they need to do that as much with Brandon Ingram in the half-court offense, hopefully not being terrible? All interesting, but I think if he had his druthers, Darko would have a team that is very much higher in the ranks when it comes to offensive rebounding. I think Collin Murray-Boyles can be a big part of that. The thing where I think he's really going to stand out isn't necessarily the scoring stuff, though. I do think it's going to be the connective passing, the sort of the way he can be a bit of a fulcrum for things. That's really going to be where he butters his bread early on. And I can't wait to watch him as a screener in short roll situations. I love Jonathan Mobo, and I think the best way to use him is probably similarly as a small ball five who can, finish some lobs here and there and then work in the short roll. But he's just not refined from that short roll area. Whereas Collin Murray-Boyles, you give him the ball at the nail, I think he's going to find ways to score out of that. I think he's going to find ways to burn guys in close quarters, get to the bucket if he needs to. I think he's going to find ways to pass out of those situations, obviously find cutters, find shooters moving off ball. And I think he probably stands a chance of having like a pretty good floater game. I think he's got better touch than Jonathan Mobo by a pretty significant margin. And so Murray-Boyles as a short roll guy, again, largely in lineups where he's playing small ball 5, I think could be a ton of fun. And what other types of lineups they work him into, I think is going to really dictate whether he plays 18 minutes a game or 25 minutes a game, right? Are they able to get him into looks with a lot of shooting on the floor? Can they play a Collin Murray-Boyles, Scotty Barnes, Mamu front court in second units and get by defensively with the switchability and the rim protection and the rebounding you get from Barnes and Murray-Boyles to overcome the defensive deficiencies for a guy like Mamu? Can they play just straight Scotty Barnes and Collin Murray-Boyles as the two bigs and dot shooting around them? I'm pretty bullish on that being a thing they'll be able to do. Again, it'd be lovely if every lineup you had 4 good shooters on the floor, or 5 good shooters on the floor. That's just not feasible for most NBA teams. And we're seeing, maybe not at the super duper highest levels, NBA finals level teams are all very good when it comes to shooting across the board. But we saw last year, there were a lot of really successful regular season teams that got by with creative sort of manufacturing space where there isn't any type offense and having, less than like a full complement of shooting on the floor, right? The Memphis Grizzlies very rarely had more than a couple shooters on the floor. They had a pretty successful season until things kind of fell off near the end, for multiple weird vibes reasons. The Houston Rockets, like there's no shooting on the team at all. Like they got by just fine with just being bruising and playing a style that was tough to handle on regular season nights. And I think, we're going to see the extent to which Darko wants to kind of lean into some of the stuff that made the Nick Nurse era a little successful, right? Like, especially I think back to 2021-22, where they played these jumbo weirdo lineups that had no shooting, but they just tilted the scales so far towards offensive rebounding and defense and athleticism and transition play that it worked out very well. And I wonder if they can find some similar looks with Murray-Boyles and Scotty Barnes as your 4-5 to, wreak similar havoc. I also think, if they really want to get crazy and just kind of go zero space, Murray-Boyles, Scotty, Pirtle, I think I mentioned this earlier this week as like a front court I'm interested to see. There's no shooting there. You're going to have good shooting at the 2 and the 1. Maybe it's Ingram and Quickly. Maybe it's Quickly and Grady Dick. Maybe it's Ingram and Grady Dick, whatever. I think there is at least room to see what that light shooting group can do. And you just spam the offensive glass. You have size everywhere. You can switch everything. Maybe you just get by playing nasty defense ball and you just kind of chip away and get what you can on the offensive end. Big to big passing, all that stuff. Like there's a good passing IQ across a lineup theoretically where you have Barnes, Murray-Boyles, and Pirtle all at the 3, 4, and 5. I think he's a kind of guy who they're going to have to get creative with because they're going to want his defense on the floor. And there are other stuff too. There's other stuff too that I think like they're going to want on the floor as well. In particular, his driving, his rim pressure. He's he might have, of all the guys on the team, like I don't know, second or third highest. In terms of just like longer term outlook, he might end up having some of the best tools on the entire roster as a rim pressure guy, as a straight line drive guy who can just like burn a dude or plow through some dudes and get to the rim and finish. He's a very, very good finisher around the rim. Maybe there's a way to unlock that a little bit. And it might sort of take away from the beautiful game style the Raptors want to play, where it's movement, it's cuts, all this stuff. Though I do think he's going to be used quite a bit as a dribble handoff guy. Maybe he can kind of attack out of that as a guy on keeper plays, things like that. I'm pretty intrigued there. But yeah, like I just like he's got so much going for him. As much as the fit is weird, I think they just have to figure out a way to make it work and get him into the rotation. Like I think he should be a very clear top 8 guy in the rotation. I think he should be playing every single night, taking his lumps, playing in weird lineups, playing in normal lineups. Like I also have a lot of time for, you want to do Quickly plus Dick plus Abaji plus Murray-Boyles plus Pirtle. It's just like a very classic high pick and roll based lineup. Great. I'm cool with that too. Like I think this roster, I'm so hopeful that they're going to get creative with how they deploy the players on this roster, because I think they can just kind of, put the dice in the Yahtzee cup and just kind of throw out all kinds of different combinations. And I'm very excited for it. And I think Murray-Boyles is such a pivot in so many of those lineups that can kind of tilt it properly in the defensive end and give them enough defensive equity to survive, even if you have lesser defensive players elsewhere. It's just, how they fit him in. if they're creative, if they're happy to live with some lineups where there's not a lot of shooting and they can get by with the offensive rebounding, the transition, the interior passing, the bully ball, that type of stuff. If they're okay with that, I think there's a pathway to him playing 25 minutes. If they are very precise about just like, okay, we're going to play him in very specific circumstances with very specific sets of players, then I think that's how you probably suppress his minutes and he plays closer to 17, 18. But I would love to see them just try to throw him into every lineup they can. And hey, if he shoots, great. Like, to be clear, don't expect him to shoot at all this season. I would be surprised if he's taking a ton of threes, let alone making them, as someone who shot 26% from three in college. I just, that might be a longer term play, and you hope that over time you can turn him into a good shooter. I don't think he's anywhere close to that. I think the jump shot itself is like very flat. He doesn't get much lift on it. It's like very much like a feet on the ground type shot, like old guy at your pickup game who doesn't jump when they shoot threes type of thing. Do I say that as the old guy at my pickup game who doesn't jump when I shoot threes? Yes, I do. Thank you very much. It's going to be a while for the three to really work out. But again, I think there's enough there in terms of connective passing, interior finishing, garbage bucket potential. He's just going to play himself into minutes, I think. And I'm really maybe this is optimism. Maybe this is toxic positivity. Maybe this is, me hoping for the best from the rookie, from the guy who plays for the team that I like. I think genuinely he is someone who, again, didn't love the fit when he was picked. Still think that's going to be the limiting factor on him specifically this season. We'll see how things evolve as his game evolves, as the team's roster evolves. But hard to deny that he's got like some NBA-ready stuff to his game. Both ends of the floor, more so on the defensive end, obviously. And I think it's going to be pretty incumbent upon the coaching staff to just like get him in there. Like, he's a guy they're heavily invested in. And if, the worst case scenario happens and this team is bad, you really start to pivot towards Collin Murray-Boyles as one of the few beacons for long-term hope. And getting that guy into as many situations as possible seems like it's pretty prudent. You get the real worst case scenario where they're bad and like tanking by February. You can look forward to probably a whole lot of creation reps for Collin Murray-Boyles late in the season. I bet they'll just kind of, all right, see what you can do, man. Go roll it out there and see what you got. That would be fun. Probably not the greatest in terms of results, but you got to take your lumps. Will he have much in the way of creation duties within the flow of the offense generally? I mean, maybe like this is a team that likes to have everyone involved. Everyone needs to be able to make a play. I think he can make a play. I think he can put the ball on the deck, make something happen. And so maybe we'll see some of that sort of secondary creation from him shine a little bit this year too. Attacking a compromised defense, that type of thing. Can he make something happen out of that as a passer, as a scorer? All fascinating things. The offense is going to be a bit more hodgepodge, a bit more rudimentary, I think, than the defensive stuff, where I think they could deploy some pretty sophisticated defensive looks with him from day one. But again, I think, this isn't going to be Matisse Thybulle, right? Where Matisse Thybulle, incredible defensive player who just brings no offensive juice whatsoever. And you really can't justify playing him more than 15, 20 minutes a game. Like, I think Murray-Boyles will bring enough on the offensive end with the way he can fill in the gaps and get garbage buckets and stuff that he will earn himself some pretty heavy rotation run. But it'll be a shame if he doesn't. That said, he's a rookie. It'll be fine. And he'll have many, many years to figure it all out. But I think it's all right to be bullish and very optimistic about what Collin Murray-Boyles can do in year one, albeit with a strange fit offensively that he's working around. But again, it's the regular season. We're not talking about playoff optimization here. I think we got to very clearly define that, right? Like, playoffs wise, yeah, you got to have shooting, you got to have counters, you got to have ways to play that other teams are you can flummox other teams with. That's not so much the case in the regular season. And right now, walk him before he can run. Worry about optimizing the playoff, equity of the roster once they actually get to the playoffs, right? Like, just get there first, see what you have, adapt from there, learn from there, all of that stuff. And as far as, getting through the regular season, I think there's plenty of recent precedent to suggest that teams can get through the regular season without having optimal shooting all over the place. And a guy like Collin Murray-Boyles, who defends his ass off, tries real hard, can be a part of a team that is successful just through sheer force of will in the regular season. We'll come back on the other side and we'll talk a little about the chances of him making all rookie, which, hey, as good a chance as anybody, not named Cooper Flagg, I'm sure. We're going to get into that and talk about Collin Murray-Boyles and his candidacy for all rookie. Also, a quick thought on Kyle Lowry going TV. We'll round to the show with that coming up in just one sec. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Skims Underwear. Yes, it's time to talk about Sean's underwear again. And I got to tell you, I love Skims men's underwear. When I learned they made underwear for men, very intrigued. I tried out some pairs they sent me. They're extremely comfortable. I ordered more. I am very persnickety about my underwear, if we're going to get real personal here. I like to be comfortable. I don't like to get all bunchy. I don't like to be overheated. I am very, very like specific about the types of underwear I will put on my body as like a guy who runs hot all the time. And I cannot swear by Skims underwear enough. The boxer briefs are fantastic. I wear them when I work out. I wear them for day-to-day stuff. It's fantastic. And perfect for any lifestyle you might have. Go check them out. Go shop Skims Men's at skims.com. Let them know we sent you after you place your order. Select podcast in the survey and select my show, Locked On Raptors, in the drop-down menu that follows. Go check them out. Skims, they're the best underwear you'll ever wear. I swear. I'm wearing them right now. Closing things out here on your Thursday edition of Locked On Raptors. Just a heads up, Bobby Webster is doing his preseason personal media day on Friday at OVO Center. I'll be there for that. Likely have a podcast after that in the later stages of the afternoon once I get home from OVO Center. So yeah, that's to look forward to. A little prelude, that is, to media day on Monday. Bobby's talking separately. Interested to hear what he has to say. Let's close things out and take a look at the candidacy for all rookie for Collin Murray-Boyles. I think, look, it's a weird one because I think there's a very real case to be made that Collin Murray-Boyles is going to be one of the most productive or effective, just better rookies on a per minute basis in the league this year. I just think he's very, very NBA ready, specifically on the defensive end. And I think there's a chance he's like impacting positive basketball, which is a tough thing to do for rookies. Where I'm a little unsure about the all rookie candidacy of it all is like people like points. People really love points from their all rookie candidates. And I'm not sure Collin Murray-Boyles is going to have the space to put up a ton of points. I think Louis Zatzman, who by the way wrote today about Collin Murray-Boyles over at Raptors Republic, I think he projected him at like 10 points, 6 boards, 3 assists. I don't think that's off. I think I'd maybe go a little less than 10 points, maybe like 8.5, something like that, just because there's a lot of mouths to feed on this team. And I don't think they're going to be like designing stuff for him on offense. I think it's going to be a lot of, if they're designing stuff for guys off the bench, it's going to be a lot of Grady Dick getting those looks. It's going to be even Jacoby Walter getting those looks. I think Collin Murray-Boyles, again, he's just going to kind of get buckets on the margins here and there, largely like we saw in Summer League, right? Like he wasn't like going out and just like creating buckets for himself time and time again. The team wasn't really drawing stuff up for him. He just like, and he had a 20-point game in Summer League, but a lot of those buckets just kind of came within the flow, cuts, dunks, transition, stuff like that. I think that's what we'll probably see from Collin Murray-Boyles as a rookie. So yeah, that could make it tough for him to accrue the total stats to be an all rookie level guy. That said, I think like the nerds who vote on these awards will be like, wow, like this guy is like a good defender from day one. And in theory, if he's playing on a good Raptors team that's in the middle of the playoffs or like in the playoff hunt at the very least in the Eastern Conference, and he's contributing to a team that's like trying to do stuff and is competitive, like that could bode well in the voting down the line as well. I ultimately think he finds his way on. I think he's just, again, he's good. And I think it really will just come down to the minutes load you're able to give him. And I think the Raptors will find a way. I think there are enough offsetting skill sets among this team's pieces to find enough lineups where Collin Murray-Boyles can work. I think they might even try some unconventional stuff, like I said, where you go light on shooting, where you go super small, all that type of stuff. Like I think it's all going to be in the toolkit for Darko Rajakovic this year. I think it'll have to be just with the way the roster is built and the sort of lack of clear two-way players they have all over the place. They'll have to get creative. They'll have to get funky. And I think a guy like Collin Murray-Boyles stands to benefit from a team that plays funky ball in terms of minutes, in terms of, the ways in which they're able to deploy him. So yeah, like I think we'll probably see him at the very least get votes. I think, a second team All-NBA is probably what I'd predict. I think he's going to get a lot of run. I think he's going to be asked to play. I think, again, backup center, he's going to accrue a lot of minutes there. And then however else they decide to stick him in there, I think like they're invested in him. And this has not been a franchise that's afraid to play their rookies from day one. They did it basically with all their guys last year. You go back to OG Anunoby, Bobby Webster was still with the team then. Obviously, all new faces outside of him, but this was a team that said, all right, you know what? This is a better team if we start OG Anunoby as a rookie. I'm not saying Collin Murray-Boyles is going to start by the end of the year. By no means. That would be weird. I don't see how the fit works there whatsoever. But I would not be shocked at all if he gets a lot of responsibility. If anyone takes an injury, I wouldn't be shocked if he's a guy who gets a call to start. If Pirtle goes down, maybe you just go Murray-Boyles and Barnes as your 4-5 and rock with that. If Ingram goes down, I could see them saying, hey, you know what? Maybe we just try this Murray-Boyles thing, even though there are other guys in the wings to throw in just for defense, for size. Maybe he's the guy. I don't know. He's the type of guy who it feels like they're going to be quite invested in giving plenty of runway. I don't think he's going to be much of a 905 hand. Let's put it that way. I think he's going to be part of the rotation, basically from Jump Street. Maybe he runs into struggle. This happens with rookies sometimes. Maybe December comes around and it's like, yeah, maybe he needs some time in the G League. Sure, that could totally happen. I just think he's too ready, too up to speed. I mean, he played in the SEC. He was on a bad team in the SEC, but he played in the SEC. Really tough competition, and he was awesome as a college player last year. I think he's going to fit right at home on an NBA floor from day one, and he's going to be, again, maybe he's not winning his minutes outright when he's on the floor all the time. There will be nights where rookie stuff happens, but compared to other rookies, I see him being one of the more impactful guys from day one, especially on the defensive end, as we talked about. Last thing I want to quickly hit on here before we send you off. Kyle Lowry announced today as an analyst for the NBA on Prime. I just have to say, excellent, great. He's going to do an incredible job at that. Kyle Lowry, a genius. It's been a long time now. I bet there are Raptors fans who just didn't see Kyle Lowry play for the team, which makes me sad because it's been that long. Probably not most Raptors fans, but there are surely new fans who are just like, who's this Kyle Lowry guy everyone keeps talking about? Oh yeah, Kyle Lowry was a genius, man. I think there's this sort of idea of, he's doing the analyst. He's going to be a coach next. Is he going to do the thing where you become an analyst and you become a coach? I don't think that's going to be in Kyle Lowry's future. I believe he quoted in the locker room one time when I was there after a game, someone asked him about, will you coach one day? And I think he said, absolutely not. I would get too frustrated. And I think it checks out, right? Kyle Lowry's one of the smartest basketball players I've ever watched. Probably one of the 10 smartest basketball players of his era. An absolute genius. And I understand the sort of this is what happened with Wayne Gretzky. Obviously not to say Kyle Lowry is the Wayne Gretzky of the NBA, but Wayne Gretzky was a coach for a bit with the Phoenix Coyotes way back in the day. And he was terrible at it because he was just I'm Wayne Gretzky. Why don't you see the game like I do? And you just simply can't teach that. I think that's a very similar thing with Kyle Lowry. I think an analyst role for him is going to be great. Hopefully he brings some they've hired a lot of good people, I think, for these analyst jobs. Dirk's in there. Blake Griffin, I think, is in there. Dwayne Wade, I think they're the new TV deal seems to have brought in some good talent to call these games and do television analysis and all that stuff. I think Kyle Lowry is going to be awesome. Just wanted to say that. I think he's a perfect fit as an analyst, someone who's just seeing the game at a level that very few people have ever seen the game. He's that good, and he's going to be great on TV. We're going to leave it there. Thank you so much for rocking with the show. Please follow, subscribe, rate, review, tell a friend, all that good stuff. Always appreciate it when you support the show. However it is you choose to support the show, and, all the usual stuff, the Discord, link in the description of the podcast. We'll be back again tomorrow talking Bobby Webster. Might do a morning podcast depending on timing. I got to get to OVO, so I might not be able to do one with Katie Heindel. But if not, Katie will be on the show again next week. Looking forward to that. As always, as our dear pal Katie is a regular mainstay throughout the season. We got Dave DeFore coming on next week. He was supposed to come on today. He'll be on next week to talk about the team and Mamu and all kinds of stuff on Tuesday, I believe. So yeah, that's to look forward to with the Doof. He's the best. And yeah, we're going to leave it there. Thank you so much for hanging out. We'll talk to you again on Friday with another episode of Locked On Raptors. Thanks for hanging. Bye-bye. Damn it.